Hello, Matt Haney, the supervisor of District 6. We'll do a little intro. So first of all, to those who are tuning in now, thank you so much for tuning in and welcome to Manny's Super Civic Cyber Conversations. We're trying to bring our civic programming to everyone through the internet now since our space was closed. This is the third interview of the day. We started with Marianne Williamson. Then we just had a conversation with Eric Swalwell, and now with one of our local city council folk, our city supervisors, Matt Haney. And if you have a question for Matt, this whole thing is going to be 30 minutes, folks. 30 minutes, start and end. If you have a question for Matt Haney, you can type it in at any time in the Q&A box, and we will be answering your questions in about 15 minutes. Okay, so type in your question in the Q&A box if you have one. One other thing, if you are interested in becoming a sponsor of Manny's or supporting our small business, just go to the Q&A box and go to the answered section and it'll be there. We had to disable chats because trolls were attacking our conversations, and so that's how we're doing it from now on. Matt Haney, how many of these are you doing? I feel like I listened to your live this morning. Have you just, like, what percentage of your waking hours in the last 3 weeks has been on some form of like a town hall or open Q&A?
Today was a lot.
Yes.
This was the one I was most excited about because I didn't have to wear a tie.
No, you do
I
not.
told Manny earlier I had a tie on and a shirt and then just like red shorts on right here. So, but now this is informal. So
yes. Yeah, you know that the way we do it is much more informal. I feel like you have opened yourself up to your constituents and to just anyone in such a big and public and transparent way. Can you tell me about why? Because you were always very accessible, but it feels like more so recently you're just like putting yourself out there. Why are you doing that without a conscious decision, and kind of what has that experience been like for you?
I mean, I feel like this is kind of a time when all of us are like, what the F is going on? You know, like what things are changing. We're hearing from family, friends, we're hearing little tidbits from here and there. And so especially early on when this was rolling out, like I just noticed immediately that so many people that I was connected to were not getting information and just had so many questions. So just saying like, I'm going to go on IG Live for a little bit, or I'm going to answer every question that comes to me on Twitter, I was getting like dozens of them or hundreds of them. And I am the only millennial on the board of supervisors. I'm, I think for those of us who are younger, I'm not super young, but younger, who are kind of part of the generation that uses social media regularly, being accessible and using that as a way to get information out there as someone who also has access to official information is important. And there aren't a lot of people who are doing that. So I just kind of felt like I had a responsibility to be even more open in terms of what I was learning and just sharing that. I share everything that I know. You know, I think that's really important for public officials. Like, whatever I know, I'll share with you. You know, and I think we don't have enough of that.
Do you feel like you are in the loop? Do you feel like you know what's going on? You know, I think there's the hardest thing about this whole, I don't know what you call it, moment that we're in, is that there's so much we do not know, right? We don't know when we're going to be able to come out of our apartments. We don't know exactly what the symptoms are like. For some of us are asymptomatic, some of us blah, blah, blah. We don't know, we don't know a lot. And so do you feel like you know what you need to know to do your job right now?
It's interesting because like, I feel like even as a supervisor, I'm also experiencing this in a very similar way as everyone else, you know? People ask me regularly, well, how long is the stay-at-home order going to be? And I say, I don't have any special information. I'm watching the news. I'm listening to people. So in that way, I have some access to information and influence, but I in many ways, I feel more like I'm experiencing a lot of this in a similar way and navigating it along with everybody else. And certainly I have some access and privilege that many people don't have around it. But, it's a public health thing, right? So like I'm sort of trying to figure this out and trying to understand it and then trying to share as much as what I learn with everybody else.
Are you proud of how, and we'll get into let's put a pin in how we are addressing folks who are unhoused. Let's put a pin in that because we're going to get to it. But putting everything else, are you proud of the way we have responded to this and kind of how the Bay Area and the 6 counties are working together right now?
I am proud of it. To have all of the 6 counties announce on the same day that we're going to do this,
Yeah.
have California go first in many ways from the rest
Yep.
of the country. It's clear that what we've done has made a difference. I hope it continues to make a difference in the ways that really prevent the loss of life.
Yeah.
So in that way, I am proud, and it was
Yeah.
hard. I mean, the
Yeah.
idea we were gonna like say everybody stay home and all these business closed, like that's unheard of. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine that would have worked, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I also feel like I've seen a lot of people step up and want to help, and I'm
Yep.
sure you're hearing this a lot from folks
Yes.
we're talking to. But like, I'm seeing a lot of the best of each other, ourselves,
Yeah.
our residents, our
Yeah.
businesses. People
Yeah.
want to look out for each other. They're not
Yes.
just trying to get theirs, you know?
Right. Right.
And that makes me hopeful about what's possible. And maybe we're leaving some of that on the table too much during normal times. How do we kind of bring that out,
Yeah.
in the future?
Are you hopeful that we will, and then this is of course, the conversation that so many of us are having and kind of the long-term effects of this. And obviously and Marianne Williamson, she said today at 2 o'clock, she was like, we will never be the same. This is going to be a fundamental shift in who we are as a species and a people. And to the extent, to a certain extent, that's kind of what history is. That's what history does. It changes us. But do you think that this is going to be a frame shift in the way San Franciscans specifically operate as a unit, as a people and as a society, our city specifically?
I think so. I certainly there's a lot of things that we've been able to do where even for me as a policymaker, I'm saying, wow, we could just do that. Like
Mm-hmm.
we could just say,
Mm-hmm.
people need to go in hotels or people can't be evicted or, we
Right.
can move things that quickly. I mean, we live in a city
Right.
that it seems impossible to get anything done
Right.
for a lot of people. And now all of a sudden we're moving quickly, things are happening, people are working together. So, I hope that we bring that same spirit of really things that we know should be different or can change. That we
Mm-hmm.
just say, let's change it, let's make it different, and let's trust each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's more trust now, which is a surprising thing. It's sort of okay if they say that's what needs to be done, let's do that. I trust that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways, from government to residents to government, and to all of us who are experiencing this together.
Do you feel that trust?
I mean, I feel a level of connection to my neighbors, to people on my block, to the businesses, that, and a level of trust that wasn't there before, because ultimately, we need each other, and we'll go down, I could be a supervisor or a business owner or whatever it is, but ultimately when it comes to something like an epidemic, we're just
Right.
human,
What about the trust in the decision makers in City Hall?
I mean, I can't say if people trust us more.
No. I'm asking you if you trust if you trust the decision makers who are right now in the command center trying to like take all this information in and figure out how to solve problems and protect our citizens.
At many levels, yes, I do. And for the order around the public health and the stay-at-home
Yeah.
orders and all of that, I don't question that. And if they said we have to go to June 1st and such,
Yeah.
then I believe that that I trust them. I do think that even in moments like this, or maybe even especially at moments like this, people who don't generally have a voice or power, or who are
Yeah.
especially vulnerable, they're still getting left behind. They're still getting
Yeah.
forgotten. So yes, trust, but verify and recognize that still we aren't going to all of a sudden, because we're in a public health crisis and we're all working together, that all of a sudden the inequities and the failures and the tendencies of bureaucracy to not deliver effectively for many people who are in need are all of a sudden to change.
Right.
So I still have the responsibility to navigate that and to uplift that, and when people are not being heard or valued, to fight for them.
And ultimately, you represent the people who are in District 6, and often, and you know more than anyone, the District 6 has the most vulnerable people in some respects in this entire city. And so if folks are getting left behind, a lot of times they're getting left behind in District 6. Okay, so let's get into it. I interviewed Mayor Breed on Friday or Thursday, and I asked her the question that a lot of people, that I've asked Jeff Kaczynski and other people, which is, it seems like we have this opportunity to house a lot of people who have been unhoused with hotel rooms. And I asked her why it hasn't been done and what the kind of realities on the ground were. And she said, it's not, she said to me that she was really excited about the prospect of actually being able to house all the people who need housing. And ultimately, if you're just talking politics, like, she wants to house homeless, unhoused people. Like, everyone wants to. It's like, who in San Francisco, it's the number one issue. Who doesn't want to house thousands of people, right? But she mentioned, the finances weren't necessarily there. The public health priorities meant that there are certain people that are going to need rooms first. That hotel employees didn't necessarily want to work, in hotels with folks that are going to be needing to be quarantined because they have COVID, and whether or not you can get the proper PPE. And then issues with 24-hour staffing and security, and folks maybe will leave these hotel rooms and maybe bring people into these hotel rooms. And she brought up a lot of reasons why it was not so simple to take people and put them in hotel rooms. And my question to you, Matt, and I know both of you, right? My question to you is, like, is that not true? Like, is it not real? Are all those things she said not actually making it so much more complicated and difficult? Or is there something missing here?
Well, I mean, of course, all of that is true. I mean, it is complicated. There are a lot of logistical questions. There's questions of funding and everything else. But imagine me a month ago trying to explain to you what we were going to do to shut down our entire city, to tell everybody to stay home. I mean, the number of questions that you would have had, and the reasons that you would have had of why that would be completely preposterous and impossible. So we are in an unprecedented time right now. And so are all of those things complicated, and are they important, and do we have to consider them? Yes. Do I believe that we can do it nonetheless and overcome those barriers? Absolutely. Absolutely. And in fact, it is much more dangerous and it's much more reckless for us not to do it. And so I respect her, and I do believe she would want to house everybody, and that she would want to. And for me, it's my job to help figure out how we can do it. Come up with solutions. We emptied a shelter on Saturday. I got the funding and found the hotel and worked with Hospitality House, and we did it.
I saw that.
And I do believe that it can be done. And if we don't do it, if we have, I mean, look, everybody knows, and we are being told I'm not allowed to leave my home unless for essential services, because if I'm around a lot of people, I can contract it or give it to somebody else. Yet we have over 8,000 people in our city who still today are either on the streets or in crowded shelters and navigation centers. It's impossible for them to have that type of distance. It just doesn't make sense. It can be rules for some of us and not for all of us if we are going to protect all of us. And that's that. So we're going to keep on pushing, and it's not personal with the mayor. We want to get it done, and I believe that she wants to get it done, and we won't stop until it is done, because it's about protecting everybody in our city.
So I want to just ask one more question on this because I'm a layperson, right? Like I know about as much as everyone else, right? I'm just asked, and I think that actually that what people are taking in is the same thing that I'm taking in, where it's like, you know, you're listening to Matt and you're saying, yeah, we need to house these people, and also like those mats in Moscone West, that does not look right. You know what I mean? And then I'm listening to the mayor, and I'm like, oh yeah, everything she's saying that makes total sense. Like maybe there's just something I don't know, like the money's not there, or you know. And so I guess my question is, so why do you think? I want to go 30,000 feet a little bit. I want to talk philosophy for a second. Like why hasn't it happened yet? What is the reason? You know, what is the actual reason? Do you think it's like not enough pressure, and that's where you come in, and your role here is to say I represent these people too, and your role is to elevate it, or is there another reason?
There's a couple reasons that I can think of, and then probably some reasons that other people could think of that I don't know. Uh, One is I think there are a lot of other priorities and a lot of other concerns and a lot of other folks who we're already, trying to deal with and help and all of that. And for people who are unhoused who may have for a variety of reasons, we haven't been able to effectively serve them already before this,
Period.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those same reasons that make us feel like, well, I don't know, that's too complicated, or it's too risky to help them in this way, or
Yeah.
that's not something we actually have a responsibility. That's a choice. That's
Yeah.
helping those folks or getting them housed or getting them a
Yeah.
shelter. That's a we'd like to do, not like a
Right.
have to
Right.
do.
Right.
Uh, and
Right.
that same mindset, that folks have, whoever they are, is going to continue into this time period as well. And
Right.
same biases we have about people and their
Right.
livelihood and their value is going to extend into this time. And so I think even as we want to do it, it's not something we feel like we have to do, and we're
Right.
still worried about their bad behavior
Right.
or whatever it is, right?
Right.
The risk they might steal a lamp or something like that, as opposed
Right.
to we have to save this person's life.
Right.
And what I hope is a shift that we can have during this time period is that right now there's a recognition that we are all connected, that
Mm.
if that person is unhoused and because of that they get sick, that my kids could get sick, that my grandparents could get sick,
Mm.
that their well-being is tied up with my well-being and people that I care about, even if I don't know them. And it's always that way. The truth, the surprise of this time maybe, or the, not to get too philosophical, but that's
No,
all,
no, go there.
that is always true. It's not
Yeah.
just when we're facing a virus. So now when it's very real in a way that it wasn't before, we can maybe see it more clearly than we could before. And so I hope that this memory of being able to see it clearly in this moment extends for us beyond this, and that we begin to see things that we view as unacceptable or too risky or too unhealthy, or however you define it right now,
Mm-hmm.
as continuing to be that way, once we get through this.
Thank you for going there, and I appreciate it, Matt. And I know that when I ask you an honest question, I get an honest answer. So thank you for your candor. I want to try to get two more questions in before we get to audience Q&As, because we're keeping this tight. The first is I want to ask you about how you raise this money privately and how you move these folks out of Hospitality House. And I know you can't say which hotel you moved them into, but like, how did you make that happen, and what's their situation like now?
So this was, last week we were continuing to push for a bigger systemic change, and we decided, you know what, let's work with some folks in our shelters and do something similar to what Supervisor Preston did, where he moved families and kids and single women. The shelter that we moved is the first single adult men who have been moved proactively. And when I say proactively, there are some people who are being moved by the city through the mayor's efforts, but those are people who are either have COVID-19 or at this point have been expected to maybe have contracted it. What we did was people who are in dangerous, unhealthy environments, we're moving them. And I went over there with them. I helped move them, from a safe distance. On Saturday, it was pouring rain, and just I could feel their sense of relief. Trying to get through this in a room of 50 by 50 that's got 30 people in it.
Yeah.
Beds is just not a safe place to be, and they knew it.
Yeah.
And just to have the thought that those 20 folks are going to be able to be in their own rooms,
Yeah.
it's important. And we basically moved the shelter to the hotel, so
Yeah.
they'll still have check-ins and food
Yeah.
and services and
Yeah.
all of that. They're not on their own, and I think that's also, when you talked about how to do this, that's kind of
Yeah.
how you do it. You
Yeah.
need to continue to have support for folks even when they're in hotels.
Right. Right.
And these, I've seen some of these folks out on the street. Like, these are my neighbors. I live in the Tenderloin.
Yeah.
um, and we got the funding largely through the United Methodist Church,
Yeah.
and the faith community has really been engaged with this. And so they, but for the grace of God, there go I. So they've understood that we are connected in this moment.
Well, by the way, I didn't mention, but happy Passover to you, my friend.
Same to you.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask you about your Seder plans at the end of this. But my last question to you is about the pyramid shift in terms of power and influence, and where our problems are getting solved. In that, before this, you go to your city council person first if you have an issue, and then maybe your state rep, and then federal. But some of the issues now are so large and so unprecedented that many of us small business owners like myself, it's nice what the city is doing and we appreciate the efforts, but if small businesses are going to get saved, they're going to get saved by the federal government right now. And so my question to you is, where does the local city representative fit in this patchwork and this map of folks who are trying to help the every person, right? You've got your employers and your employees, you've got your most vulnerable, you've got all the way up to your business executive, and you have all these people trying to help us, right? You've got your Matt Haneys and your Scott Wieners and your Gavin Newsoms and your Eric Swalwells, your Nancy Pelosi's and your President Trumps. What's your piece? What's your role in all this? And where do you feel like you are best? Where can you best serve the American people right now?
That's a good question. I think that as a local representative, I see myself as the conduit even for all of those folks that you just mentioned. Like, I'm the one, me and my staff have to be the ones who are closest to the ground. So if you have a question about any of those things, because it's something that directly touches your life. If your business was forced to close, if you have to pay your rent and you don't know how, the actual answers to that may be a state solution, it may be a federal solution, but come to me. My job is to figure out how to navigate that for you and to help fight for you and help get you information, because ultimately you can't go to Nancy Pelosi for, hey, I want to have there's homeless people on my block and I need to have a bathroom there because they need to have a place to go, but I can help with that, and everything else, and I'm also feel like I feel like I'm thinking a lot more about the federal government in ways that we didn't before. For a lot of, they were, with Trump especially, they were sort of, doing bad stuff, but kind of, a sideshow in some ways. Now all of a sudden we're also kind of thinking, you know what, we need the state and we need the federal government a bit more. And so San Francisco has been in a pretty privileged position to not have to think about the federal government for a long time. But we are now, because we can't.
We need them. All right, let's go to some audience Q&As. Kurt, and I think this is probably a bunch of people's questions, is what can the average person do to help people get off the streets, and maybe specifically into hotels? Kurt wants to know how can people help get people off the streets?
Well, so tomorrow, just on a policy level, we're introducing, me and 4 other supervisors, Ronan, Peskin, Walton, and who did I leave out? Ronan, Peskin, Walton.
I don't know.
Who?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not in the room where it happens. I'm just talking to people.
Preston and Peskin. That's right. The two names get mixed up. We're introducing legislation tomorrow that would really require the city to secure hotels for all these folks that we've been talking about. And ultimately, it's emergency legislation, so it'll take a couple weeks, and that's not ideal. I mean,
Yeah.
we want to work with the mayor and HSA and everyone else to get this done. So
Yeah.
you can email your supervisors and the mayor and tell them that you support this. We moved out close to 20 people over the weekend. We are in the process of helping move out another shelter that we're working on called Community Forward.
Okay.
7 women, cisgender and transgender women. We are likely, we haven't started this yet, but likely going to be asking people for support to help us do that. And we've identified a hotel and such. So, you know, even under the mayor's plan, some people would not be included. And there's no commitment right now from the city for anybody under 60. And the thing about being homeless, if you're in your 40s or 50s, you may, you know, they may say 55, but your actual health because of that experience could be more like being in your 70s. And so there's a lot of people who are vulnerable who would be left behind.
Yeah. Zach Lipton wants to ask, many sidewalks in D6 are too narrow to stay 6 feet apart from others. Why has San Francisco been so resistant to the idea of closing or narrowing streets, as a number of cities have done? I think in particular during this period, I think he means that, closing streets for people right now.
So
I think
I have been for closing streets since before this, as Zach may know, and I'm for closing streets now. And in fact, I'm working on, which I'm going to finish tonight, a letter and some public stuff that we're doing around what's happening in the Tenderloin, because a lot of people in the Tenderloin, they live in little small rooms, or they're without homes. There's very little open space here. So our streets here in the Tenderloin, especially our sidewalks, are still very crowded, and people can't walk down the street and maintain social distancing. So I know there's been conversations about Golden Gate Park and other things.
Yeah.
But the Tenderloin, I think, is a place where we could do this on a couple blocks. My understanding is DPH is against closing streets because they believe it will attract people. I think other cities have demonstrated that that's not true.
Jim wants to know, Jim says the city must be spending a fortune in all of this, which is great, but it can't go on forever. What are your thoughts about finding money to continue the support that we're giving people now? And I'll just add on to that, you know, the mayor also mentioned that they're looking at an over $1 billion budget shortfall. So where's the money going to come from to continue supporting people? And yeah, that's what Jim wants to know.
Yeah, so I've heard that in the second relief package that the federal government, again, relying on the federal government, is working on, and Pelosi in particular is really focused on local and state relief. And you know, if we got a check from the federal government for a couple $100 million, that would make a huge difference for us.
Right.
And I think there's going to be a number of different iterations of relief from federal and state that go beyond this, and we're going to need to have help after this. I will say one good thing: we have a reserve, an emergency reserve for recessions, really, that's over $700 million. So we are
in the city.
In the city.
The city has.
In the city. Oh. And so we are more prepared for this moment than we've ever been, is what the controllers told us. So yes, we are facing a deficit. 1 billion to 1.7 was the estimate, but we're also more prepared than we've ever been, and we cannot afford to not spend on things that are preventative and proactive right now, because if we don't do that, because we're afraid of the money aspect of this, more people die, and we'll also end up having to spend more money on the back end when people end up in the ICU.
Right. Del Seymour
asks, the mayor of the Tenderloin
asks a fiery question, which I feel like I need to ask.
This is one of Del's humble servants.
And I also did interview Del before this, early on. So he asked, like City Hall is giving you the proper support that you need to deal with the most challenged district. Are you feeling like you're getting the support that you need from City Hall?
Never. You know, I mean, I feel like this district and the people here, you know, deal with so much. And obviously I'm biased because I represent them and experience this, but this is a district and a community that really takes on a lot of people who've been rejected and displaced and mistreated by other places, not just in San Francisco, but much further beyond. And they come to this neighborhood and to District 6, and we need to be there for them. And especially in a moment like this, they're more vulnerable than ever. They're more exposed than ever. And everything that we've done to create this situation in this community is amplified right now. So I would never say we are doing enough. I would never say I'm getting enough help, because walk outside of the street here in the Tenderloin, Soma, Treasure Island neighborhoods I represent, people are struggling. They were struggling before this. They're struggling even more during this, and they're going to struggle afterwards. And we as a city, I think, need to recognize that and do more for them.
So there's a lot more that we could talk about, Supervisor Haney, obviously, but you have got a lot to do, and we've got to keep moving. For folks who have tuned in, if you go to the answered section, there's a little link where you can become a sponsor of Manny's. You can also, I'm doing this thing, you can also go to this link right here. It's joinit.org/o/Manny's. That's joinit.org/o/Manny's. We're shut down, we're closed. We are not making money right now. And so we're asking everyone who can to please go to this link and help my small business stay afloat during this time. We're providing this programming to everyone for free as a service, as a public service, but we do need your help. So if you can go to joinit.org/o/Manny's and donate or become a sponsor, I would really appreciate it. And it would be a great Passover miracle. Last question for you, Matt, is what's your plan for Passover? What are you going to do?
You know, I usually go to my grandparents' house. I go every year, and they have this beautiful Seder.
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't know if my grandpa uses Zoom, but I'm going to, now that you've brought this up, I'm gonna ask my grandfather if we could do a Zoom Seder. And
Wednesday night.
If we do it, Manny, you're invited.
Oh my God, I will be there. I will be drinking red wine alone in my apartment with you and your grandparents. I promise you. You just send me this.
Okay,
send me the Zoom link
right now, asking if we would do a Zoom Seder.
I'm down. I'm there. I'm willing. I'm into it. So you just let me know, okay? Thank you very much, Supervisor Haney. Appreciate it. Folks, if folks have more questions, they should email the staff email, right?
Yes, haneystaff@sfgov.org. or Matt Haney SF on Twitter, and I'll respond to you.
Matt Haney SF on Twitter, haneystaff@sf.org. There are a lot of questions we didn't get to, so please send your questions to haneystaff@sfgov.org. Thank you to Han for coordinating this, and thank you to Sam, who is our operator today, as well as Jupiter and Ram on my team for being such stalwarts and helping us and working and continuing to work during this moment that we're in. To all the San Franciscans who've tuned in, thank you for being so strong, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye, Matt.
Thank you.
Talk soon. Bye.